Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2020 Ford Ecosport. This is a vehicle that I have had trouble recommending as a new vehicle, but I don't have trouble recommending it as a used vehicle. And I've been doing videos for 3 different channels, doing review videos for many years now. And it's interesting to me that this vehicle now appeals to me when it didn't in the past. So let's just talk about that. The very first thing I want to point out is, as a new vehicle, I kind of felt like this was overpriced. Not so much for the features that are in it, but compared to the competition. There were other vehicles in its class that I thought were better values. Now, Ford stopped selling this as a new vehicle, and that leaves it to the used market to compete. And in the used market, I think it competes pretty well. And we're gonna talk about the features in this car that make it great. But first of all, I wanna thank Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals for giving me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup, because you can come to Jim Gilbert's and compare this to all of its competitors using the same salesperson. This is known as Canada's huggable car dealer. That salesperson doesn't care if you buy the Ford or the Nissan or the Honda or anything else. They just want to make sure that you get what you need for you. So that's a good thing here, because this still may or may not appeal to you, but in that used market, it's taken the depreciation hit that it probably deserved, and now it becomes something that I think is quite interesting in the marketplace, but it may or may not be right for you. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about a lot of things that are kind of overlooked in this car that I think really make it good. And like I said, when it was first new, there were other options, but when it's taken that depreciation hit, it's now priced where it should be, and it may be a great option for you. So let's talk about that and more coming up right now. So the first thing we should talk about is, what is this thing? This is an odd class of car. There are subcompact crossovers, and that's what this kind of falls into, but they're a little bit more standard crossover look. This to me is very much something that, if you prefer the feeling, the drivability of a subcompact car, but you've moved beyond that, maybe you've made a little bit more money and want a few more features, that's where this sort of fits in. It is very much the footprint or the size of a subcompact car, but it gives you all-wheel drive, it gives you a lot of nice features inside, and it still gives you that subcompact car feeling. Most subcompact cars, when they're sold new, compete on price. They are small, you're buying a cheaper new car, and that's where this one didn't fit to me. In that small crossover segment, there were other vehicles that offered you a little more size and all the features, and I kept thinking size was what people were looking for, but I used to own a smart car, and I think this is a really key thing. The smart car is one of the worst cars you can buy. They don't drive well, they're weird, there's a whole bunch of reasons. They're expensive, but I used to own one. Now again, I bought that car used because it made more sense that way, but I love that smart car. And that's the thing with this. Sometimes you don't need more size, you just want some features and you just want some things that make sense for you, and that's where this vehicle may make sense. And there are a number of unique things in this vehicle, so let's talk about them right now by starting at the back end. So we're going to talk luggage and cargo capability, and to do that, we're going to talk about the trunk. But I want to point out right here that you do have a roof rack, and a subcompact car does not normally have the roof rails here. This allows you to take things like kayaks, to take things like bikes, to take things like extra luggage cargo boxes, all that kind of stuff that you don't need a bigger car for. But that one trip a year when you're going to the cottage or going camping or that kind of thing, you can put something up here and then drive a smaller car the rest of the year round. So having these, I think, makes sense on a car of this size. Now let's talk about the trunk. The trunk is interesting. I knew that it opens up this way. It doesn't open up from the top, but I didn't realize where the handle was. There's no handle here. This is your handle, and it's actually not a handle, it's a touch button just like a modern car. You touch that and it opens up wider. So let's talk about why this may or may not be good for you. First of all, the reason it's not ideal, and they don't do it on most cars, is because on a longer vehicle, swinging wide, you just don't have the parking space there. If someone parks in behind you, all of a sudden you can't get to your groceries and that kind of thing. Now, because this is a shorter vehicle, even in most garages, you're gonna be able to open it fully wide like I've just done. And that leaves you a couple advantages. If you have a low garage, you're not raising that to hit the garage. A lot of these power tailgates on higher end vehicles, they have a setting to set it lower so they don't automatically open up into your garage. But if you didn't have a power tailgate, you have a manual tailgate, sometimes you're holding that and you can't open it up in your garage. So this allows you to open up in a garage, even in a parking spot, because it's a shorter vehicle, you've got room to open it, and it makes for a nice low lift over. kind of gives you a nice opening there that is still practical. Not everybody's gonna love it. Some people it's gonna be neutral. For a lot of people, it's going to work, and it does do that different. Let's take a look in the trunk now. So taking a look in the trunk, you have typical SUV-like features, except for this. Because this door doesn't swing open or doesn't swing up, you have the ability to have a very large storage area here for a little bit of groceries that you have, for washer fluid, all those kinds of things that you don't want in the trunk maybe, or maybe banging around. They can sit in this door, swing open and closed, and that gives you an option. Over in the rest of the vehicle, it's typical small SUV type stuff. This panel, of course, raises and lowers, but it also comes off. The seats can fold down. When you fold down the seats, you've got a big square opening to fit something like a dishwasher or a washing machine even, right in there with the seats folded, so you can fit large things in your small car, and that makes some sense as well. So for a very small car, the cargo space is very good. Again, if you compare this to a subcompact car, it's just unbelievably large, and even compared to some sedans, compared to some other, vehicles that are longer than this has got a much more practical trunk, which is part of the appeal. There's other safety features on this car that you don't typically see in cars of this length or this small size. Little things right here is there's backup beepers. So these little sonar sensors, they warn you and beep progressively quicker as you approach something. They also have a visual display to warn you what corner of the car, so if it's this side or that side or in the center, if there's something approaching you or something that you're approaching when you're backing up. You can see it in your backup camera. Backup cameras, of course, are mandated now, but you can also get a sense, if you don't notice it in the backup camera, you get a sense of where the obstacle may be. So you have those beepers, you have the backup camera, you also have a radar system in here, which can look back and be your blind spot detection. We all know why blind spot detection is helpful. Little orange light in your mirror that helps you see if somebody's in your blind spot. But when you're in reverse, when you're backing up, this radar plate is also useful. Imagine that my body is a minivan parked beside you. There is no possible way the driver can see through that minivan, but as you back up this vehicle, once this section here clears that minivan, it has a radar system, the same radar system that uses for blind spot detection, that shines out this way, and it can approach people crossing your path. So it has what they call rear cross traffic alert. So you couldn't see them from your driver's area because you're parked beside the minivan. You can't see them from your backup camera because it doesn't give you the wide enough view, but you can be warned when things are crossing your path. And for a small little car like this, that's an atypical feature. That's not something you typically see on a vehicle of this size, and it's nice to have. Now let's talk rear seat really briefly, and then we'll go to the front seat and talk some of the features in there. So this is going to be an interesting test because normally what I do is I sit in this seat before I do the video, but I haven't done that. I've checked out the features, I've looked in there, but I haven't sat in this yet. So this is real life stuff of do I fit, do I not fit? Now let's just talk features before we get in here. First of all, bottle holder in the door, which is kind of a nice thing to have, just necessary. Most of this is hard plastic, so this is small car typical stuff, but right here you do have some soft padding where you're going to put your arms, which is very good. Taking a look at here, you do have some patterns on the seat here, so you have a little bit of style in there, and the seat bottom is fairly long. Now, this driver's seat is set up for where I need it. This is a very short car. Typically what you see on short cars, especially SUVs, is you sit very square, which should help with knee room, but I can see this is drastically carved out. They're trying to create some extra space here. Do I fit? Before we jump in, let's talk about the only feature back here. No vents on the center console there. You do have a 110 volt, 150 watt. Let's just zoom in there. Oops, wrong way. There we go. Little plug there. So that is a household style plug, 3-prong plug. 150 watt is the lower end available in cars. They usually go up to about 400 on a non-electric car. But again, it'll power your laptop. It'll do those basic things, powering things up with a standard plug. So now that I can jump in, let me do that and let's see what this is really like. So this is interesting to me. You can see there's a carve out right here. If I sit back, I have enough headroom. If I sit a little bit forward, I am basically on the roof. So I would like it if this carve out was a little bit more forward, but that's there for the sunroof. So it is tighter on headroom, and that's not what I was expecting. I figured a taller vehicle like this would be good on headroom. Where it's actually good is not where I thought it would be good. Down here, I am square and flat on here. This makes it really comfortable. A lot of cars, even expensive cars, you have to sit up like this in the back seat, but I'm very square here, and because I'm square here, I have enough legroom there to sit behind myself. So a 6-footer behind a 6-footer, actually works in this car. Again, headroom is there. It's tight. You're not wearing a cowboy hat back here, but you're fine for headroom. You're quite good for legroom and overall comfort. Width is not massive, so you're going to fit 4 people in this car comfortably. If you fit 3 in the back seat here, it's going to be tight like any small car, but a surprisingly good space back here for a 6-footer. Now let's go to the front seat. I'm going to turn the car on with the air conditioning because it's a hot day. We're going to talk about the features in this car, and that's really where this car shines. For a small car, it's got a number of nice features, and I think it's worth pointing out. So let's go take a look at that. All right, before we jump in the car, let's take a look at the key fob. This is what we're dealing with right here. Pretty simple stuff from Ford here. Unlock, lock, panic button. That's it. Nothing fancy, no remote start, no powered tailgate or anything like that. No, nothing really, but that's all you kind of need because it is a keyless entry key fob, and that means that you can approach this car without a key in your hand, and to unlock and lock, you just tap those little hash marks there, but we are going to keep it unlocked. We're going to jump in and we're going to show you up front the powered seat. Now, this is a powered seat. As you can see here, you can move the seat back there, the seat bottom there, but it also has a manual lumbar support. So you have enough support there to ride it comfortably for a long time. Let's jump in here, take a look at the dash. All right, so first of all, why don't we look at the door just so we don't forget that. Lock and unlock is up top right down there. You have your typical buttons down here. Let's zoom all the way in. You do notice that your auto down and auto up window on the driver's side. So driver's position only is auto down, auto up. But on a small car like this, you're not always taking a ton of people. So that works fine for me. I don't mind that. And again, mostly hard plastics except for where you're actually putting your elbows, which is a softer plastic here. So let's go fully wide angle. We're going to need to have a little bit of wide angle here. Let's just start the car up. Again, push button start. So we're going to start that up. Normally I'd start with my right hand, but I have that on the camera. All right, let's bring the steering wheel up and down a little bit. So the steering wheel is tilt and telescopic only. I'm going to turn the volume down on the radio. Sorry, it's tilt only, not telescopic. So it can't come in and out, just goes up and down. That is what it is, it's fine. All right, so one thing you're gonna notice, we're gonna take a look at me in a second here, but again, you're very square. My legs are out and down. Yeah, it is kind of what it is. Overall, I kind of like some of the features in here. You have some of your typical Ford stuff. So we're gonna take a look at the screen here. Cycling down there, you have your favorites. So this is, for instance, set to speedometer right now, but you can go through there. There is a navigation. We're gonna show you that in here. So nav is available on the touch screen here. We'll show you that in a second. Then you have radio station, that's Sirius XM. We'll show you that in a second. Connect your Bluetooth. There's different car settings here. And we'll go back to, again, ignore fuel efficiency on any vehicle sitting at a dealer. These cars idle a lot. They do what they're doing right now a lot. So that's sit here and idle for me, for you, for other people. So don't worry about fuel efficiency. You'll probably outdo that. And we'll just leave it back on the speedometer there. So again, let's go fully wide angle again. Take a look at the steering wheel here. So steering wheel, pretty good stuff over here. A lot of small cars don't have cruise control. You can see you can reach that easily here. This is how I was controlling that center display that we were just looking at, which is right over there. And then you have your audio controls, your Bluetooth controls right over here. Fairly compact wheel here. The seating position is fairly upright again. The only thing I don't love is that this pillar is a little bit bigger. They try to make it bigger with a window there. On the driver's side, that's no use to you. On the passenger side, it's pretty small. Like, I guess you would see something there. But for a smaller car, it's got a bigger pillar. It's really the only negative from the driver's perspective. You actually have a pretty commanding view of the road, and you are sitting taller than in a typical subcompact, which a lot of people like. Over here is more pretty good stuff. Again, you're getting the equipment. Remember, when this car was new, it was fairly expensive, and that's because they threw in a lot of features. So you've got things like your audio hookup, a nice touch screen here. Let's just go to the audio section for a second. You can see your sources right up. We're on satellite radio, so there's AM, there's FM, there's satellite radio. Again, you didn't always get that in some of these lesser expensive cars. Phone setting, nav setting. If we go to the nav setting, there is a slight delay on this, so that's okay. You do have your navigation here, so you can see we're sitting here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, just off of St. Mary's Street, or on St. Mary's Street. We're just off of it ourselves right now. But a nice little nav screen, simple stuff, easy to use. And then you have your apps here. Let's just go to that for a second here. So connected device, so there's no Android Auto or Apple CarPlay on this car, which is something you would get in a newer vehicle. There are other vehicles with that option, but again, you have the navigation there, so you may not need it. Of course, you can connect Bluetooth still, so you have that. Over here in the settings, a lot of nice things. Sirius XM, you can set all that stuff up. General settings here, just see, yeah, nothing too fancy in there. Some sync, so Ford Sync system is their infotainment system here. It's a pretty good system, pretty well respected around the industry for being good stuff. So again, kind of everything you need in a subcompact car, and this nice view here where you have your radio station, you can see if your phone's connected, you can see navigation all at once. So that's pretty good. And then let's just show you the backup camera while we're here. So jumping in reverse, you're not towing anything here, but you do have a center line here, and the guidelines do move with you. And remember, we showed you those backup beepers, those little dots. We didn't really show them until we talked about them. This is where it would show on one side or the other if you're approaching something. So if you're not fully paying attention to your backup camera, this will light in green and yellow and red and that kind of thing to tell you, hey, you're really close to something on this side or in the center or on that side. So nice little feature to have there. And again, very clear, good enough camera for what we've got going down there. Big vents, and they're fairly close to you. We're going to flip the camera around in a second. You'll see all that, how close they are to you. And then down here, you actually have a pretty good system. So it's a single zone system, which is typical for the class, but you set it and forget it. 22 degrees Celsius, you need air conditioning or heat. It's on the auto setting right now. If you want to just sort of slow down the fan, you can just bring it to the low level of auto, which means it'll still bring it to 22, but it won't really rev the fan really super high. So you can kind of just gradually bring the temperature back up, or you can just allow the fan speed to go to full on high if you want it to. I like to keep it kind of in the middle there sometimes. All right, down here you also have rump roasters, 3 levels of heated seats. So sometimes we can hold them to turn them all off. Nope, not on this car. We have to actually tap them 3 times and that's fine. You also have a steering wheel heater. Whoa, those seat heaters get warm right away. I felt that already on the cloth seats here. So very good seat heaters. And then you also have steering wheel heating, which is again, not typical for the class. Down here is the auto start, traction control, 2 USB ports to plug things in. A decent space down there for a phone. Automatic transmission with the manual shifters right there. So you can tap up or tap down. So you do have some control. On a smaller car like this, sometimes you want to have a little bit extra control like that. 12-volt port right there. Really deep cup holders down here so you can fit tall stuff, and nothing fancy in the armrest there, just a little dinky guy with a little tray in there. We'll just leave that in there for now. So let's flip the camera around and show you me now, because I think there's more to show you here. All right, so seating position is a little unique in this car. If you don't like sitting low in a car, but you want a small car, this is a good option for you because you're fairly square. Think of it like sitting not on a lazy boy, think of it like sitting on a kitchen chair. Your legs are pretty square, you're sitting fairly upright. That's the comfortable way to sit. And again, you're not reclining way back just because of the way your arms and legs go, which is good because you would lose that rear seat space. Sunroof is here. It's just a little behind me. Again, I'm fairly tall, so if I was sitting here, the sunroof is almost behind you. That's just the slope of the roof. That's the catch of doing some of these things. You still have some nice light in there. You can open it up and that's kind of thing. That's good. But again, a little bit more of a unique seating position, which again, not uncomfortable, just a little different than some of the competitors by being so square. That squareness puts the steering wheel fairly close to you. And again, this isn't a tilt or telescopic steering wheel. I like the steering wheel close. That's how I usually adjust my telescopic steering wheel. But if you like it further away, you'll have to decide if this seating position works for you. These compact vehicles have compact seats. Now these ones are fully fine. They support me just enough, but they're not large seats. If you're a very large person, you're going to find these seats to be a little bit tight probably. But if you're average size, I consider myself still on the tall side of average. But if you're average size like me, they're fine for comfort. So pretty good space in here, pretty good overall visibility is good. The seats are low, but like I said, other than those pillars, and that's really why you would want to cross shop this, because looking at the spec sheet compared to something like the Chevy Trax or the Kia Seltos even, or those other kinds of vehicles, you are going to have a different feel to those vehicles, but they all are also larger. If you need something very small for your garage or for your driveway or for your wherever you park, this is still a decent option, especially now that it's used and it's in that price point that makes sense for this vehicle. Let's go ahead and finish up and talk about who this car is for. So who is this vehicle for? Well, the first thing I think that matters is you have to want a shorter vehicle. That's really one of the strengths of this. To get all of these features in a vehicle of this length is pretty rare. So the competitors, for the most part, are a little bit longer, and that does give you a different style of cargo area, a little bit, in many cases, more roomy back seat, a little different driving position. Again, not more comfortable in the driving position, just different. It's a unique driving position here, not exceptionally different, just a little bit different. And as someone who gets in new cars every single day, a lot of cars feel familiar. This one's gonna be just a little different. And again, not uncomfortable. So that's why you kind of wanna cross shop this and why it's helpful to be here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals. You can jump from one to the other within seconds rather than driving across town to see that. So if you want something compact and you want some features, this is a great option. This also is a pretty good option for an active lifestyle kind of thing. The all-wheel drive, great for winter, also going to give you a little bit more traction in, camping roads, that kind of thing. I like the fact that it has a roof rack. A lot of times roof racks are purely for adventure-y people who like to take their kayaks, their mountain bikes, their skis, all that kind of stuff up top. And obviously this is useful. But the other thing that's really important for on a smaller vehicle is because sometimes you do that one trip a year where you need to take extra things. So if you bought a roof box, it's a lot cheaper to buy a roof box for a vehicle like this than to just buy a bigger vehicle, have more fuel use, that kind of thing. So having this roof rack really opens up that versatility for even if you don't need a larger vehicle when you buy this. If you had a couple trips a year where you needed a larger vehicle, you have the option of taking extra stuff. Other than that, this is a pretty solid vehicle. It's got decent safety, it's got decent tech with the navigation and this Ford system information in the dash. It's got heated seats, heated steering wheel. It's got nice, good air conditioning. For small cars, air conditioning isn't always great. It does have the sunroof, even though it is positional behind you, and it fits 4 people fairly comfortably with a decent sized trunk for what it is. I get it now. Again, when it was new, I had trouble recommending it because it was a little quirky and because of the price. The price comes down as a used vehicle and it becomes something that should be right back on your shopping list. So if you're in Fredericton area, make sure you swing by Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals. There's a few of these here and you can compare them with their competitors. So make sure you do that. And if you want to know more about this, let me know in the comments because I can make future videos on a used car that maybe the videos that you want to see aren't out there or you can't get the answers you want because nobody's reviewing this car anymore. I'll continue to review it if you want. Just let me know in the comments. Thanks everybody for watching.